In this section, we are going to look at different visibility specifiers within the Solidity programming language. This will be the last time we are going to talk about some theory concept about this Solidity program. Next section, we are going to get into the actual programming part. So what is this visibility specifiers? So whenever you create a, let's say, variable or a function within the smart contract, right? You might want this variable to be accessed by the external people, the real world people like us, the externally owned accounts, or the other contracts in the blockchain, or derived contracts, or within the blockchain itself, right? So you can specify for each variable and function if you want this to be visible, okay, to the outer world and contracts and everything. So there are four options or three options here. One is the outside world, which means the externally owned accounts. Within the contract, which means within the same contract, if I'm creating a variable, should I be able to access the variable within the contract by the functions and all of these? Derived contract. Okay, derived contract means it uses the concept of inheritance and things like that, which is a object oriented concept. If you do not understand derived contracts, we are going to talk about that in detail in the inheritance portion. But before that, remember that that is also a option that we have. I told you 4 or 3 options because I am considering derived contract and other contracts. Within the blockchain you can have multiple contracts, right? So other contracts also come as a bundle with here, right? Derived and other contracts. Now there are 4 types of visibility specifier. One is our public, private, internal and external specifiers. What does public specifier mean is that the outside world, which means the externally owned accounts, within the contract and the derived contract, all three can access the public variables. So once you create something like A and make it public, so all of the outside world within the contract, derived contract and other contracts will be able to access the variable, read the value of the variable, write some value to the variable, etc. Now come to the private. Private for that contract means that only within the contract you can use it, right? And outside world and derived contract cannot access this private variable, right? So if you create something like B and this is within a contract, right? Only within the contract some function will be able to access it. From outside, nobody will be able to access the variable directly, right? That is the private visibility specifier. Then comes internal and external. For this, consider internal to be within the blockchain world. Okay, within blockchain world, just for easily remembering these things, right? Within the blockchain world. Okay, this is outside the blockchain world, outside the blockchain world, or outside the contract. You can call it, to be more specific. Outside the contract, if you are able to see that or not. Now, what do I mean by internal is that within the contract and the derived contract, I can use this internal variables from not from the outside world. Right? And external, I'll be able to use anywhere outside my own contract. Right? External is just the opposite of private. Okay. So outside world and derived contract comes under external. Within contract comes under private. So these are complementary, I can say. Right. So looking at this in a diagrammatic format. Okay, so let's say this is the blockchain world, okay, blockchain world, and this is the real world, okay, real world. Now there is some account here, okay. Now I am creating let's say public A. What does this mean? A is a public variable and hence one smart contract is here, okay. Another smart contract is here. Both are within the blockchain world only, and there is the real world. So A can be accessed within the contract from real world and from the other contract also, right? If I create private A here instead of public, I am creating private A. Then that means only within the contract I'll be able to use the private variable. Other contracts and real world cannot access. Internal is within the blockchain world itself. So this contract, derived contracts, other contracts, anything can access that variable which is internal. And when I mean external, it means this within the contract you cannot access the variable, but only from outside some other contract or from the real world you will be able to access that particular variable, right? So these are the concepts of visibility specifiers. Very important to remember this and use it at the right appropriate moment, because just a small difference between public and private can cause a lot of security issues in your smart contract itself. So this is another concept which we need to know before jumping directly into writing our first program. Next section is going to be about programming on the Solidity programming language. Let's jump into that.